The choices that we make as parents are very crucial, because if we choose correctly, we pave the way for our children, our offsprings, to thrive, and the ones that come after that. But if as parents we choose the wrong things, or even if we don't correct some things, it means we have created cycles that are also going to affect our offsprings. You see, many years ago, we could be talking about 5-6 generations ago, somebody made a choice. Now, this is a video for the curse breakers, okay? Generational cycle breakers. Somebody made a decision, or somebody made a choice. At the time, it was working for them. They thought that this was what they needed to do. It was working. That was the trend at the time. It could have been participating in certain practices, covens. It could be a certain following the path of witchcraft. It could be anything. One of the things that those people don't understand, and they didn't understand at the time, is that sometimes there are some practices that involve invoking certain deities. While doing those practices, they invoke certain deities, because that is how things are supposed to be done. Now, the deities they are invoking are not physical people. Okay? They call them deities for a reason. They are spiritual beings, demonic entities. Sometimes, if it was not consciously, a decision could have been done by a parent 5-6 generations ago, and because that practice that they did, it was a practice that involved participation of certain demonic entities or deities. That was the birth of the generational curse. Because you see, when we're doing things, we need to remember something. When we're not here, nobody will live forever. Of course, after some time you leave this planet. You shouldn't continue. We need to remember something. The deities, they follow bloodlines. Your time is finished, okay? Your time is gone. Maybe you grew old or whatever. You passed away. These deities follow bloodlines. So for them, they are not concerned about you. They are not concerned about you because you are not here. So they are now following your children and the grandchildren to come. That is what I'm talking about. That is how generational curses are born. There are some curses that are genetic in nature. Let's say, for example, somehow 5 generations ago, 6 generations ago, a parent was born with a certain deficiency. So they carried something in their genes. The children they will also embody those particular genes or DNA. And the children that come afterwards, and so on and so forth. That becomes generational curse. In some cases, we have something they call cycles. Is why sometimes you hear generational curse or generational cycles. It can be either way, or sometimes generational trauma. It can be a trauma that you have had to deal with, one of your ancestors dealt with at the time, and that trauma got very deeply imprinted within their spirit, and they passed on that trauma to their children, and so on and so forth. Or it could be cycles they adopted. They struggled with a certain cycle. It wasn't a healthy cycle at the time. That cycle was very deeply imprinted within their DNA. It continued to be passed on to their children and the grandchildren, and so on and so forth. Then it became a generational cycle. So we might have a generational cycle, we could have a generational trauma, we could have generational curse. It could have been something a parent did and they was cursed by somebody. Let me give you an example. A parent could have taken somebody's life. Is why I'm telling you, many of the times we have to be very, very careful, ladies and gentlemen. There are some things we have to be very, very careful. There could be a parent who took somebody's life many years ago. And the people that was, let's say for example it was a child, the parent of that child, they have cursed that person with intention. And that curse has been established in that family, and it has continued to haunt all their children and the grandchildren and everybody in that bloodline. So these are things that have got nothing to do with us. They have been passed on from previous generations, many centuries, many decades ago. Now, at one point in time, you incarnated or reincarnated into that family. Now, this is not a religious channel. Sometimes I talk about these things and they are very deep. And people say, oh, but Jesus said this, and the scripture, all those things are demonic. And now they start to bring all these terms and whatever terminologies. Now, listen, the channel is not for everybody. The curse breakers, they know. Okay? Basically, what happens is your incarnation into that family or reincarnation into that family, you become the one that has to end that curse. But for you to be able to end that curse, you are first of all going to be born into a family where you will be able to understand what the curse is. And for the most part of your life, you will have to go face to face or heads on with that particular trauma or curse or cycle. So you will have to deal with it. And now, what normally happens as a curse breaker, because I've told you these are spiritual things that are happening. It's spiritual. These deities, they will identify you from a very young age. They will know exactly where you are, what your mission is, and what you're there to do. And they're going to go to work. In some case scenarios, I can give you an example of a cycle of alcoholism. We already understand alcohol is a spirit. There's a spirit connected to alcohol. It's why sometimes you see people drinking and they lose their mind. They don't even know where they live. They don't even know who they slept with last night because they have taken alcohol. So they are not in charge of their mind. That spirit, it keeps on haunting all the generations after you until somebody is born in that unit, and they will eventually recognize from day one that person is the unwanted guest, because you embody a frequency that is a threat to their existence in that family. That is why we are talking about the person they call the black sheep of the family. The black sheep of the family, you have already been identified many years ago, even before you knew yourself. You have already been known to be a curse breaker. Is why your life has been the most intensive. Everything was against you because of the nature of your assignment. So a lot of times when before you complain about your hardships, your troubles and whatever, oh, it was too hard, it was like this, you need to understand the lesson that was being taught at the time by the universe. Because before you step into your power and your purpose, which is to break and end the curse cycle or trauma, you have got, first of all, to understand what it is. That is when you're able to now take the necessary steps to start the work, the assignment of breaking and ending that curse. So you're the one who says, okay, this thing has been going on for, because eventually you're going to wake up. A black sheep, there's no other way around it. You will wake up. You will then understand what exactly has been the cycle you've been dealing with. And because you understand the nature of that cycle, you have lived it, you have witnessed everything, you now choose that is going to end with you. It is not going to be carried on. Alcoholism will not be passed on to your children. So you may start taking decisions. As I'm talking alcohol, I'm seeing a vehicle with the word beers. Talk about divine synchronicity. So you now decide you're not going to pass on that cycle to your children. You now decide to preach a different path altogether, show them a different way altogether, so they don't have to deal with that particular curse or cycle that you've been dealing with throughout your life. That is exactly what they call a generational curse breaker. You first of all have to understand the curse that you're dealing with. You have to embody that frequency so that you better understand how it feels and all the plus and cons and pros, how it works, how it operates within the unit. Then you wake up and you change the game and you change the rules. So you don't be surprised as to why you have been the most hated member of the family. People didn't like you. It's not because you had anything wrong with you. On this 3D, it wasn't personal. It wasn't personal because a lot of the people that was dealing with in that unit, they was embodying that similar frequency. Let me give you another example of narcissism. The curse I was breaking was narcissism. It had existed for a long time. I'm looking back and I'm seeing the grandparents and probably even the great grandmother. There was somewhere it came from, the lineage where it came from. And because everybody in the family embodies that frequency, you being a cycle breaker, it is very possible and likely that you will not be welcomed and they will not really like you because they recognize you embody a frequency that is too powerful and is going to end that curse cycle or trauma. So the curse that you're meant to break was born, birthed, initiated a long time ago. All of you guys are born into a family of witches. Your parents have been a witch. The great parents was a great, the grandparent, your parent was a witch. Your grandparents was a witch. The great grandparent, the same. That is exactly what I'm talking about, because those things keep on following bloodlines until somebody says, no, this is it. It has to end with you. You're not going to carry that BS onto the future generations to come. That is exactly what they call a generational curse breaker, the cycle breaker, the one that puts an end and refuses to pass on these things to their children and the future generations to come. Okay, it's not a walk in the park, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a walk in the park. It's not peaches and cream. It's not milk and honey. But because of the frequency, it's in your DNA. Your frequency is the one that is a threat. It's very powerful, and it is recognized spiritually because you have the power to break that curse and that cycle. That's why you are always the most attacked from day one, because those deities or entities, they have been existing in those bloodlines for generations. So when you become a cycle breaker, it means that you are ending them and they cannot be passed on. So that's why they are fighting you the hardest. Is why your battles have always been the hardest. My black sheep, scapegoats, chosen ones in the family. Let us know what you think. You guys know I love and appreciate your support. Please book a session if you want to. You may donate or support my channel if you want to. Everything you need, you will find it in the description below. And until then, I will see you guys in my next one. There's almost signing out. Much love and blessings. Peace.